It's Jeremy here with Red Hawk Coaching, and I have the pleasure today to interview one of my clients, Craig Covey with Covey Insurance, located here, Humble, Texas. If you're not familiar with Humble, Texas, it's in the greater Houston area. And it's an opportunity today just to be able to talk with Craig, be able to have him share what's going on in his business and some of the hot topics of the day. So welcome, Craig.
Thanks, Jeremy. How are you?
Oh, doing great, doing great. Beautiful day. It's Thursday and the sun's out and shining right here in Kingwood, Texas. Beautiful day. Probably going to be in the 50s and 60s. Couldn't ask for anything better. Let's hop right in, Craig. So, Craig, tell me why you chose insurance as a profession. You've shared this story with me before, but I don't know if everybody knows.
Um, Probably I would say it goes to 9/11. I was working with Samsung on the cell phone manufacturing side. It was fairly new. Of course, now everybody knows Samsung today. But at the time, it was fairly new, and 9/11 had happened, and I had a young family. And the empathy side in me was drawing me towards doing something to take care of my community. And it pulled me to working with first responders and their communication systems, because the towers had shown how the police and fire were not communicating with each other. So I moved into that technology to work with that development. And I was still feeling a draw for something more for me to do with my community and something kind of entrepreneurial. And I really enjoyed the financial market. And my father and my father-in-law are both entrepreneurs. And so when I was having a conversation with some financial institutions, I had come across an insurance agent in our area, and I mentioned it to him, and we got into a discussion. And before I know it, I'm having conversations with managers in the insurance industry, and found my way to joining Farmers Insurance in 2005. And I've been an insurance agent since. I'm now independent. I left Farmers a little over a year and a half ago to become independent, which means I've got a bunch more markets, more competitive, and the ability to do the shopping for my clients so that they don't have to go out there on their own and either navigate it without any particular knowledge. They're shopping it as a consumer. And this way I can use my professional expertise to take care of that shopping for them.
Yeah, Craig, you shared with me when we first started coaching. You shared with me a story about how insurance has been a part of your life, and an incident that took place within your life. Share a little bit about that.
Well, it wasn't too long ago. It was 2016, June 8th. And I'm in a golf cart community, a country club community, and we've got a golf cart, and I had it worked on to prepare for summertime golf. And I'd gotten it back, and it was not repaired correctly. And about 2:30 in the morning, we woke up to smoke in the house. And before we know it, we discovered that we've got a full blaze going on in our garage. And our garage is part of the house, and it's built in. So we've got a room above. My son's room is above the garage. And fortunately, we were able to get it out. And we spent, of course, anybody after a catastrophe, we spent many months going over the what ifs. I was on my way out the door into the garage that was full of smoke, and you couldn't even see the fire going on. It was so full of smoke, but you go outside and there's a full blaze out there. We just dropped off my son that day for his Boy Scout camping trip. And his room and the garage and part of our room, our bedroom, that's where the bulk of the damage was. So about half of our house was gutted, and we had to live somewhere else for 10 months while our house was repaired. That's the thing that you prepare for, and that's what insurance does for you.
Yeah, what ifs could have been, what if you didn't have that coverage and you weren't able to be able to protect your family financially? It could have been devastating.
That's the devastating part of it, but it's, what I'd always talked about with people before I had my own catastrophic event was the ability to, houses can be replaced. There's things that cannot be replaced, and our kid's a little bit older now, but at the time that I always referenced whenever I talk about insurance and the catastrophe that could happen for somebody, what the effect is on the kids and what it means to them, because their world is a lot smaller than ours. And then you're talking about their prized possessions, their toys, their dolls, just their bedrooms. And those are the things that even after the fire, what we work to protect about, helping the kids to transition with this, because all of a sudden now they're waking up in a totally different house. And that's our new way of life for the next 10 months. And so just having that experience provides me even more empathy and even more knowledge of some of the small nuances of the inner workings. Some things, there's one or two parts that I didn't know about just being an insurance agent, having taken clients through other claims. I've not had any other fire claims with my clients, but we've had multiple catastrophic claims as we've dealt with floods in our area here. And that's a different peril on a different policy, but it still lends to a lot of our clients who were displaced from their homes, had to go find lodging elsewhere. And those that happen to live in a two-story who found themselves living upstairs and in tight quarters and using Bunsen burners to cook their meals now because they don't have any appliances. It's what we learned from our experience and what we witnessed with friends and clients that were going through the flood is it becomes a time of where you either decide that you're going to be a survivor or you can be a victim of the circumstances. And we're the type that we just put our head down, we plowed our way through it, and because we're on our own. And what I took from that was to be sure to be there to put my arm around my clients and tell them we're going to get through this together and help them navigate it. It's a difficult time for anybody, and I hate that anybody had to go through that.
Yeah, what an awful situation to have to live through. Yeah, what a powerful perspective you have now when you're working with your customers and your clients to be able to have that empathy. And I think if you hadn't have gone through that experience, it's a lot tougher to connect. And like you said, it's bigger than the financial protection, which is obviously important because that impacts everything in their lives. Yeah, it's also about people. And I appreciate you sharing that. What does it mean to you to have the opportunity to help people avoid that financial devastation? What does that mean to you?
Oh, it's life-changing. I've got couple clients, that this past May, there was an area there in Kingwood that flooded, and these are homes that have been around for over 30 years. And I've got several clients in that area that flooded, and because they've been there for so long, they didn't expect that they would flood, and so they didn't see a need for flood insurance, and they flooded. And now all of a sudden that they've had a house paid off for 20 years, they're now back into a mortgage paying for those damages. And that happened in May. And then one client had moved back into their house on September 16th. And then we had Tropical Storm Imelda come through, and their house flooded again on September 19th. So they'd only been back in their house 3 days. Fortunately, we had a flood policy in place for that second flood. But here they go again, now going back into it. And it's difficult, and very fortunate this person has the moxie to endure it again. And I really pat him on the back for him and his family to be able to dig in and go through this again. Unfortunate situation.
Well, I want to ask you a question later about how often you want to review and who do you want to be in business with when it comes to insurance. But I want you to share a story that you had shared with me about it. The person wasn't even your client, and they were impacted by the flood, and yet you were able to go and help them by digging in a little bit deeper. Can you share that story?
It's a really good story. It's this couple, I know them personally, I've known them for years, and they actually ended up being our neighbors when we were in our lease house, when we were working to have our house repaired. Because the flood from Harvey happened just a few months after we just moved back into our house. And this couple was very kind. They helped us get the lease house set up for us to be able to bring in the kids and make that our home for the period of time that we're in there. And all those people behind us, we're one street off from the lake, and everybody behind us flooded. We almost flooded, but everybody flooded behind us. And so a couple days later, once the water had receded, my wife and daughter went over to go help our friends and neighbors behind us. And I stopped in at this couple's house to see how they were doing. And I've got a lot of the people's flood policies on the street, and I had claim adjuster assigned to be able to show up the next day. So I'd ask them if they had one coming or if they needed me to get mine to try and check on them. And they told me they didn't have flood insurance, that their mortgage company told them that they didn't need it. And one of the benefits is that I'm very knowledgeable of the area. I've grown up here and I've been doing insurance here for 15 years. And I'm one of the top flood insurance providers for the area. So I had a discussion with them about it, and I came back to the office and immediately ran what's called a flood zone determination, and it didn't pull up right away. It had to be manually done. So I waited a few days for that to come in, and when it came in that in a flood zone type that requires them by their mortgage company to carry flood insurance. Well, this is very exciting to me because that puts us on a path then that I described to them to be able to go back to their mortgage company. And I gave them the strategy to lay out. And at the end of the day, their mortgage company accepted the responsibility for them and got them $100,000 of coverage to take care of their dwelling. And when the wife had told me about it, I was more excited than she was. And I felt that. And so after a couple of days, my next epiphany was that the contents weren't covered. So I got back in touch with them and gave them the advice on how to now go back and get their contents coverage. So at the end of the day, they went from having no coverage to $125,000 in coverage through this direction that I was able to put them on. And that's very exciting, especially when I'd asked them what their insurance agent was giving them the advice to do. And they said her advice was that she was apologizing and good luck. And I know that was difficult for that agent to be able to tell them that, but knowledge, and experience. I went through this with Hurricane Ike for a client of mine when their mortgage company had failed to pay their insurance out of their escrow. So having that knowledge, being able to use it for somebody like this in a situation that they're now shopping at Lowe's for the cheapest materials to be able to put their beautiful house back together, I couldn't see that happening. So of all the people that flooded, to be able to help one of them in that kind of situation was very rewarding. And
yeah, it's like you get to be the superhero, and it all goes back to knowledge and experience, and a lot of times when we're hiring people, that's what we want, yet we don't ask or dig deep enough to make sure that's truly who they are. And that's a great story and a great testament. Just the fact that you were helping your people, being able to go out in your community and physically help people recover from that. Imelda was devastating. Harvey was devastating. We've had some other floods in between that have been devastating to our area. And I know you've been a big part of making sure that your customers and clients are taken care of. Craig, I wanted to ask you, what is something about your business that makes you unique? If we could go out there and look for other insurance providers, and there's a bunch out there, but what makes Craig Covey of Covey Insurance unique?
Experience. I've had the privilege of officing with a claim adjuster who operates as an expert witness. I've officed with him for 9 years, and he was a claim adjuster now for 45 plus years. He's retired, but he still takes on a couple cases. And with him, he covered the gamut. He did accident reconstruction. He would get hired by attorneys to do accident reconstruction, to review policies. He's worked death policies, life insurance. He's worked commercial policies, and very interesting cases. I keep telling him he needs to write a book. But we would sit in the evenings and at the end of the day and visit and talk about these cases. And he hired me on several occasions to be able to consult with him on some of these cases that he worked on. And through that, and from him not just being a longtime claim adjuster, but that he's working as an expert witness, that he's got the knowledge to be able to teach attorneys about the insurance. And he would write the questions to give to the attorneys for the attorneys to ask him and explain to them why they're going to ask him this question. And just very interesting the way that he did that. And I actually used some of that to leverage my own claim, with my fire that was going on. And just my own natural, I mentioned I've got empathy. I've also got tenacity. I have a difficult time taking no for an answer when an underwriter or a claim adjuster or a billing person is telling me no when I'm trying to work on something on behalf of a client, when I know it can be done. Prime example, a client of mine has been traveling just this week. Client of mine has been traveling, and so she wasn't getting her mail, and she was due to make a payment, and the policy canceled for non-payment, and it was past the date that we could get it reinstated. So customer service had told us no to be able to get her policy reinstated. Well, I don't like taking no for an answer for something like that, because that would mean that she would have a lapse in coverage. Nothing happened, but if we go to rewrite her, then there's going to show a lapse in coverage, which could change her premium.
Right.
So I went back through my contacts with that carrier to work around it and provide the simple solutions that were there, but they weren't willing to accept it at the time, but worked different channels that I knew that could, I needed to get all the no's I could get, and was able to work through the other direction to be able to get her reinstated so there's no lapse in coverage and get the payment made, and everything's fine now.
Yeah, I think
But that's it.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when people hire, we talk about insurance, they think, okay, well, I'm going to hire this person and then, they're going to disappear on me. And I think that's something different that you've proven, and especially in our conversations and coaching, is I know you go to work for them, and you are a tenacious person. And I think that's really important key characteristic when you're hiring somebody in this industry, because there's always the opportunity for the way out. And when you've got that agent that's on the ground that's working for their customer and client, I think there's so much value in that. And then going back to alignment with, the person that walked you through all those different cases, and you're able to learn from that. Most people don't get that opportunity, and you're able to now take that information and what you've learned to be able to go back and service your clients at an even higher level. And so it's about the people you're around too, right?
It is. And that's what I was just thinking of. And really, if anybody is watching this, I would say the one thing to really take away from this is don't take the first no. In everything in life, I'm thinking of two more quick scenarios. I had a printer cartridge sitting on my desk for several months that we got in Office Depot for a printer that I decided not to use anymore. I went to go return it a couple weeks ago, and the manager there told me no, that they're not taking it back. And I gave him several opportunities to change his mind, and he said, no, we're not taking it back. So I had walked out, and that really didn't sit well with me. So I read the back of their receipt, which they don't even point that out to you. I went back in because on the back receipt, it also said 100% customer satisfaction guarantee. Well, I walked out of there without 100% customer satisfaction. So I walked back in, and I was very nice, and I gave him another opportunity. Hey, look, you said that you will not take this back, and it's right here on the back of the receipt, but it also says 100% customer service guarantee. What could we do here to maybe give me something that we could both win from? That's the whole goal, is to make a win-win situation. And he said, well, I'll give you a gift card to be able to use in the store. I said, perfect, because there's things I need to buy, so give me a gift card for this. I'm going to turn around, and now instead of going out the door, I'm going into the store. I'm going to use the gift card, so we both win. Yeah. And that's how we turned a situation that I was not going to be a returning customer ever again, to where I went back in, and now I'll continue to be able to shop there because he was willing now to work with me to figure out a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think that's, in small business, I think that's something that all business owners should look at, is where is that win-win opportunity? I mean, if it's a win-lose, it's not going to work out very well. And I see that in the way that you work with your customers and clients, that you're always looking for that win-win to make sure that everybody feels like something's happened and done correctly. And I applaud you for that.
Well, that's always part of my goal, that if somebody's going to invest their time with me, even though it may only just be a few minutes because of some of the information we need, with our discussions and everything, I always like to get their declaration pages, because if I can't find something better for them, if what they have, and I always describe to them, look, it's a win-win for you. Either we find something better for you with the same or better coverage at a lower premium, which is what people are always interested in. Or if we can't, then at least if I see their declaration pages, then I can maybe give them some advice to make their current policy, which is turning out to be the better one for them at the time, to make that one work harder for them. The goal at the end of the day is to make their insurance dollar work as hard as it can, that they can get the value out of it. Nobody's looking for cheap insurance. They want insurance with the best value.
Yeah, and cheap insurance doesn't mean also that you're fully covered as well, correct?
Exactly. I usually give the metaphor that everybody knows your house is your castle, and physically you can see that you build walls around your castle, you build a moat. These are protective devices, and insurance is that inanimate object that works the same way. It's the walls and the moat to protect your castle, to protect your income and your financial health. Is to protect your family. All the things we talked about, like with my house fire. And if you don't have all the proper coverages, you've got a puddle for a moat in the back. Well, then that leaves it open for something bad to come in, and that could wipe you out financially, could cause a financial catastrophe for you. And that's what insurance is for. And uh, you know I'm I'm going 100 miles an hour thinking about different things, but at the end of the day, that's what you want, is to have the walls be fully built and the moat to be fully built all the way around you to protect you. And that's what the insurance is for. And with the right agent, whether it's you want to find the right personality that works with you, you want the right customer service, good communication that's going to follow up with you, that's going to take the time to give you the knowledge, so that you can be a good consumer, that you know what you're shopping for, so that you're not going to go, if you're going to try and get a quote yourself, that you're not going to miss anything with the coverage. Because that's something I see quite a bit, where there's websites that allow the consumer to go and do the quotes themselves, and they don't know, and the website is built to offer lower coverage in some parts of the auto policy, for example. And a consumer doesn't know what it's done there. They don't know to recognize that.
Until it happens, right? They got to make the claim, and then they're like, no, we can't cover that part of it, right?
That's where they find out, and that's not the time to find out what kind of coverage you have. At the time of the claim is not the time to find out. You want to know well in advance before that, so that as an informed consumer, you can decide if you want to keep the coverage that way or make an adjustment to better fit. And that's what I try and do for people.
And how often, that kind of leads me to the next question, how often should people be reviewing their coverage or their policy?
Anytime that they have a change in their household is usually a good time. For us in our office, we work to shop every renewal. So if it's an auto policy that's renewing every 6 months, we're checking on it every 6 months. If it's a 12-month policy, or the homeowner's policy is renewing every 12 months, which is the normal case, we're reviewing those every year. And we want to reach out to our clients to find out if there's been any changes, if they've put in a pool, if any of the kids are now driving, which you want to be able to alert your agent to, so that you don't have a teenage driver driving without insurance coverage. Because you're not just throwing them the keys to the car, you're throwing them your wallet, your 401k plan, all the things that, again, financial protection. So those are things that we're trying to do throughout the year.
And the other thing too is, and I know we've talked about this on our coaching calls, if you have one policy, maybe you have their car policies, but you don't have their home, wouldn't it make sense to at least get a quote on the home as well? Because then it typically, they save additional money by bundling.
You can. I always tell people it never hurts to look. It's a win-win. We either find something better for you, or we'll discover that what you have is currently working better for you, and we may have some advice for them there. But also, too, that you have everything with one agent, with one agency. So you've got that one relationship to work with, and that you don't have to remember where you maybe have something left if you got your household split with a couple of agents. In some scenarios, that works out to be okay. But in the time of an incident, and if that incident is something major, I've seen it. People's minds, they have trouble. You kind of find yourself in a little bit of a fog. Up is down, left is right. I had a client where they had the house that they're raising the kids, and they were relocated here. This was in San Antonio, and it was a house that they were raising their kids in when they were babies. So this is a good home for them. Well, they were leasing it out, and it ended up where it had a gas leak, and it exploded. Nothing left of this house except for the garage door. And that's catastrophic. And you're wondering, do I have coverage for this? And they called me, and he's in a panic. And I'm telling you, he literally could not remember his own name. When something happens like that, it shifts you out of your normal lane. You're driving every day down your regular lane, and it shifts you 2 lanes to the right, and all of a sudden, you're watching the world go by, and it's like a dream state when something like that happens. We felt some of that when we had our house fire. It just totally changes things for you. And that's where it's important to be able to have the agent that fits you, whether it's their, you like the personality, that's always making for a good fit. It's not always about the premium, but you want the right coverage with the right premium. You want the right agent, the personality that that they communicate with you well. There's several factors that go into it when you or a consumer is shopping around, and we want all those pieces to fit in with them.
Well, Craig, I appreciate you taking the time today. I've learned a lot, and I know the people that are watching this, if they've gotten this far, they've learned a lot. More importantly, if somebody has an insurance question or they're looking at maybe changing up their policies or getting more coverage, how do they connect with you?
I would really, really love the opportunity to take a look and see what I can do for you. Our number here is 832-995-5594, or you can email me at covey.ins@gmail.com. I love what I do, and even if it's just you want to have a conversation, want to learn more about insurance, I love teaching this, and whatever I can do to help you out to be a better consumer, I'm more than happy to help.
Well, Craig, again, I appreciate your time, and I think it would be worth the conversation if somebody did have questions to be able to reach out to you, take advantage of that opportunity that Craig's offering to be able to have those conversations with you. And again, it's just a conversation. It's not a commitment, and it's about being informed with how to protect your things that are most precious, not just the home and the cars and the boats and toys, but your family. And I love how Craig connected that early on in the conversation. Yes, it's there to protect the financial, but just some things you can't replace. And Craig's able to empathize with you there because he's been through that experience himself. And that makes a powerful difference when you're working with somebody, because they're going to go work hard for you because they've been in your shoes. And so again, Craig, thank you for joining me today. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to Craig.
Thanks, Jeremy. And thanks to those of you that watch this. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be able to tell you a little bit more about myself.
All right. Take care.
You too. Thanks.